welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're doing a mini deep dive into the world of hiring Apache Struts to developers. We're going to tackle your most frequently asked questions head on.
Exactly. We'll give you the essential knowledge, drawn from the experts at theperfectdeveloper.com, so you can find that perfect developer for your needs.
And speaking of theperfectdeveloper.com, before we jump in, I highly recommend you check out their 5 questions tool. It can really simplify your developer search. It's a fantastic resource for getting started.
Okay.
Let's unpack this. First things first, what is Apache Struts and why would I need a Struts developer?
Think of Apache Struts as a specialized toolkit for building robust web applications, particularly those complex enterprise-level systems that require top-notch security and the ability to handle tons of users. It uses Java, which is known for its reliability and scalability.
So if I'm building something like a large e-commerce platform or a system to manage a company's entire operations, a Struts developer would be the right choice.
Precisely. Struts is particularly well-suited for projects demanding scalability, security, and long-term maintainability. A great example is the online trading platform for a major financial institution. It handles millions of transactions daily, all powered by a robust Struts application.
That's impressive. Now, you mentioned enterprise-level systems, but isn't that what any web developer does? What makes Struts developers so special?
Great question. While it's true that many web developers build websites, Struts developers bring specialized knowledge to the table. They have a deep understanding of the Struts framework itself, the MVC architecture, and specific Struts technologies. Think of it like this. Any carpenter can build a birdhouse, but you'd want a specialist with knowledge of complex architectural design to build a skyscraper.
That's a great analogy.
What?
It helps to understand the level of expertise involved. So if I'm ready to start looking for a Struts developer, what skills should I absolutely prioritize?
Java proficiency is non-negotiable, as it's the foundation of Struts. They also need in-depth familiarity with both Struts 1 and Struts 2, as many projects involve maintaining or upgrading legacy systems built on earlier versions. Understanding the Model View Controller, MVC architecture, is key, as it underpins how Struts applications are structured.
MVC, it sounds pretty technical. Can you break it down a bit for our listeners who may not be familiar with that term?
Of course. MVC is a design pattern that separates an application into 3 interconnected parts: the model, the data, the view, what the user sees, and the controller, which manages the interaction between the two. Struts follows this pattern, so developers need to be fluent in it.
So it's not just about writing code, but about understanding how to structure an application efficiently and effectively.
Exactly. In addition to Java and MVC, they'll need to be proficient in web technologies like JSP, Java Server Pages for creating dynamic web pages, and HTML for structuring content. Database integration is also crucial, as most web applications rely on databases to store and manage information.
It sounds like we're building up quite a checklist, but knowing what to look for is only half the battle. How do we actually assess these skills during the hiring process?
Don't just rely on resumes. Take a close look at past projects. If a candidate has worked on Struts projects before, delve into the code quality, design choices, and how they utilize the framework. It's like checking references. But for code...
So it's like a detective investigation.
Yeah.
But for software development.
Exactly. During interviews, avoid just theoretical questions. Challenge them with real-world Struts-related problems they might encounter on the job. You want to see how they think critically and apply their knowledge to solve practical issues. The experts at theperfectdeveloper.com can help you craft these types of insightful interview questions, by the way.
That's a great tip. And speaking of theperfectdeveloper.com, they also offer some fantastic resources for creating hands-on coding challenges.
Yes, these challenges, which can be tailored to your specific project needs, are a great way to evaluate a candidate's problem-solving abilities and see how they approach real-world coding scenarios. It goes beyond just talking about skills. It's about seeing them in action. Coding challenges are a fantastic tool. They give you real insight into a candidate's thought process and coding style, which is invaluable.
It makes a lot of sense. Now let's tackle the ever-present question of salary. What can someone realistically expect to earn as a Struts developer? It's a big one for both sides of the hiring table, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And it does vary based on experience, location, and the specific demands of the role. But to give you a general idea, entry level, Struts developers often start around $60,000 to $85,000 per year.
So those just starting out in their Struts career.
Exactly. As they gain experience and move into mid-level positions, that range typically jumps to $85,000 to $120,000. And for those seasoned senior developers with a deep understanding of Struts and potentially leading teams, teams, the salary can reach $120,000 to $160,000 or more.
That's quite a range, and it highlights the value of experience in this field.
It certainly does. And keep in mind, those figures can shift based on location. Larger companies and major tech hubs often pay a premium for in-demand skills like Struts development.
That makes sense. Now, another big question that often pops up is location. With such a global talent pool, should I limit my search to local candidates or consider overseas developers? What are the trade-offs?
It's a common dilemma, and both options have their advantages and drawbacks. Hiring locally often means smoother communication, easier collaboration due to being in the same time zone, and potentially a better cultural fit. You can meet face-to-face more easily, which can be really valuable.
I can see how those factors would be appealing, especially for complex projects where clear communication is crucial. But what about overseas developers? What are the potential benefits there?
Tapping into the global talent pool can open doors to a wider range of candidates and potentially more competitive rates. You might find someone with highly specialized Struts knowledge in a location where the cost of living is lower, which can translate into savings for your project.
Cost savings are always attractive. But I imagine there are challenges too, right?
Of course. Time zones, language barriers, and cultural differences can sometimes make communication and collaboration more complex. It's essential to weigh these factors carefully. That said, there are tools and strategies for overcoming these challenges, and theperfectdeveloper.com can be a valuable resource in navigating this landscape.
It sounds like finding the right balance between skills, location, and budget is key.
You hit the nail on the head. And remember, this is where a service like theperfectdeveloper.com can really streamline your search. They specialize in matching businesses with developers who have the precise skills and experience you need, taking into account your location preferences and budgetary constraints.
They're like the expert matchmakers of the developer world.
Exactly. They take the guesswork out of the equation and help you connect with the ideal candidate for your Struts project.
That's reassuring to know, especially for someone new to hiring developers. Now, we've talked a lot about what Struts is and the skills needed, but for those listeners who might be wondering if Struts is the right choice for their project, can you give us a clear picture of what types of projects are best suited for Struts? When is it a no-brainer?
Struts really shines when it comes to building those large-scale, enterprise-grade web applications we talked about earlier. If you're developing a complex system that needs to be incredibly reliable, secure, and able to handle a high volume of users, Struts is an excellent choice. Think of things like sophisticated e-commerce platforms, customer relationship management, CRM systems, or enterprise resource planning, ERP applications. Those are all areas where Struts excels.
So if you're building something big, complex, and mission-critical, Struts provides a solid foundation.
Precisely. And let's not forget about legacy systems. If you have an existing application built on an older version of Struts and need to maintain or upgrade it, finding a developer with specific experience in that area is crucial. They'll be familiar with the nuances of legacy code and can ensure a smooth transition.
So Struts isn't just about new development, it's also about supporting those systems that are vital to many businesses. It sounds like there's a real demand for developers who understand the ins and outs of legacy Struts applications.
There definitely is. It's a specialized niche, and those with experience in legacy Struts are highly sought after.
This has been incredibly insightful. I feel like we're starting to paint a clear picture of when Struts is the right tool for the job and the kind of expertise needed to make those projects successful. But before we move on, are there any common challenges or potential hurdles that someone might encounter when working with Struts developers or using the Struts framework itself?
It's a great question, and honesty is key here. While Struts is a powerful framework, there are a few things to keep in mind. The framework itself can be complex to learn and master. It has a lot of moving parts, and finding developers with the right level of expertise can be challenging.
So it's not a plug-and-play solution. It requires a certain level of specialized knowledge.
Exactly. And if you're dealing with legacy code, things can get tricky. Legacy code can be difficult to maintain and update, especially if it wasn't well documented or structured in the first place. It's like trying to renovate a house without a blueprint.
That sounds like a recipe for headaches.
Yeah.
Are there any other potential challenges we should be aware of?
Performance can sometimes be an issue if the application isn't carefully designed and optimized. Struts applications are known for their ability to handle a high volume of users, but if not implemented correctly, they can become sluggish and unresponsive.
So performance tuning and optimization are crucial.
Absolutely. However, these challenges shouldn't deter you from considering Struts. Experienced Struts developers are adept at navigating these complexities. They know how to write clean, efficient code, optimize performance, and handle the intricacies of legacy systems.
That's reassuring to hear. It's all about finding the right talent who can leverage the strengths of Struts while mitigating potential challenges.
Precisely. And remember, resources like theperfectdeveloper.com can be invaluable in connecting you with those skilled individuals who can make your Struts project a success.
It sounds like finding experienced Struts developers is key to navigating those challenges. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the core skills to the salary expectations and even the nuances of working with legacy systems. But before we wrap up this mini deep dive, I'd love to hear your advice on interviewing potential candidates. What are some must-ask questions that can really help separate the Struts experts from the novices?
You're absolutely right. The interview is where you can really dig deep and assess a candidate's true understanding of Struts. Here are a few questions that can be incredibly revealing.
Perfect. I'm all ears.
One of my favorites is, walk me through the life cycle of a Struts 2 request. It sounds simple, but it requires the candidate to demonstrate a thorough understanding of how the framework processes requests from start to finish.
So it's about more than just knowing the individual steps. It's about understanding how those steps connect and form a complete picture.
Exactly. A strong candidate will be able to articulate the flow of data and actions within a Struts 2 application, showing they grasp the bigger picture.
Okay, I like that one. It's a good way to gauge their overall comprehension of the framework. What else do you have?
To assess problem-solving skills, I love to ask, how would you troubleshoot a Struts 2 application that's suddenly become very slow? Performance issues are inevitable in any software application, and this question reveals how a candidate would approach such a situation.
It's like a real-world scenario that tests their ability to think critically under pressure.
Precisely. A skilled Struts developer won't panic. They'll have a systematic approach to troubleshooting, mentioning things like checking logs, profiling the code, and identifying potential bottlenecks. They might even discuss strategies for optimizing performance and preventing similar issues in the future.
It's not just about fixing the problem, it's about understanding the underlying cause and preventing it from happening again.
Exactly. Now, for a question that delves into the core of the MVC architecture, I recommend asking, explain the difference between a Struts 2 action class and a Java bean. This question helps you determine if they truly grasp the fundamental components of the MVC pattern.
So it's about separating those who have a deep understanding of MVC from those who might just be familiar with the terminology.
Exactly. The candidate's answer will reveal whether they understand the distinct roles and responsibilities of actions and Java beans within a Struts application.
I can see how that would be a valuable insight. What about integration with other technologies? It's such a crucial aspect of modern web development.
You're absolutely right. To assess their integration knowledge, I'd ask, how would you integrate a Struts 2 application with a database using Hibernate? Hibernate is a powerful tool for simplifying database interactions in Java applications, and many Struts projects use it.
So this question tests their familiarity with a commonly used integration tool and their ability to explain how they would approach the integration process.
Precisely. And lastly, I always like to wrap up with a more open-ended question that sparks discussion and allows the candidate to showcase their broader understanding of Struts. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of using the Struts 2 framework? This encourages them to think critically about the framework and demonstrate their knowledge of both its strengths and weaknesses.
It's a great way to gauge their level of experience and insight. A knowledgeable developer won't shy away from acknowledging the limitations of a framework while also highlighting its strengths.
Exactly. And that open, honest discussion can give you valuable insight into their approach to problem solving and their overall understanding of Struts.
This has been an incredible mini deep dive into the world of hiring Apache Struts 2 developers. I feel like we've covered the essential questions and provided our listeners with a solid foundation for their hiring journey.
I agree. Remember, choosing the right framework and finding the right developer are crucial steps in building a successful web application. Struts can be a fantastic choice for those large-scale enterprise-level projects that demand security, scalability, and reliability. And with the right questions and a thorough evaluation process, you can find the perfect Struts expert to bring your vision to life.
And don't forget, theperfectdeveloper.com is an invaluable resource throughout this process. They can help you define your needs, refine your search, and connect you with the ideal candidates who match your specific project requirements. Be sure to check out their 5 questions tool and explore the wealth of resources they offer.
Absolutely. Theperfectdeveloper.com is your go-to partner for navigating the complexities of the developer hiring landscape. With their expert guidance, you can confidently embark on your Struts development journey.
This has been The Deep Dive. We hope you've enjoyed this insightful exploration into the world of Apache Struts 2 developers. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep learning.